Great. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I am your session moderator, Katie Chalk. I have just a few housekeeping items just to share with you before we get started. We ask that you do keep your microphone muted throughout the session. If there's time, we can unmute yourself at the end to ask questions. However, if you have any questions throughout, please do enter them into the chat panel. We will be monitoring that, and we will do our best to answer all questions at the end of the presentation. We are recording this session and it will be made available at a later date, along with the presenter slides. Lastly, closed captioning is available throughout the session. So with no further ado, this presentation is called Partner Up, Raising OER Awareness at Regional Campus of a Public Research University. I'll turn it over to your presenters.
Great. Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us this afternoon. Before we get started, we would like to have a statement of acknowledgement. Indiana University East is located in Richmond, Indiana, in the east central part of the state. We wish to acknowledge and honor the Miami, Peoria, Kickapoo, and Shawnee people on whose ancestral homelands and resources IU East, Indiana University is built. So, to get started, my name is Beth South. I'm the Assistant Librarian of Access and Technical Services at the campus library. I work with electronic resources and acquisitions here. I've been at IU East for about 8 years now, 6 years as professional staff, kind of in this role a little bit, and now 2 years as a tenure track librarian. I was promoted in 2019, and that is when I really became involved with OERs for the first time. It was around this time that a university-wide OER working group was being formed here at IU, and they wanted representatives from each campus. And my director had asked if I'd be willing to serve on this group, which the group is now known as the IU OER Advisory Council. A little more on that later. Before then, I really didn't know much about OERs or heard much about them. That has certainly changed the last couple of years. So I've only been actively promoting OER and working on OER initiatives just for about 2 years now at this campus. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm now going to pass this over to Zihang to introduce herself.
Thank you, Beth. My name is Zihang Shao. I'm the Senior Instructional Technology Consultant in the Center for Faculty Development at IU East. I consult with faculty in planning, developing, initiating, testing, and using new and innovative approaches to learning, instruction, and assessment. I also offer faculty development workshops and webinars and one-on-one consultations. Besides, I often collaborate in larger initiatives and working groups to support the mission of the IU teaching centers. Today, I'm very happy to share with you my experience in collaborating with Beth. Beth, can we go to, yes, thank you. There are 3 major events that highlight our interdepartmental collaboration so far. First, in the fall semester of 2019, Beth and I participated in the planning activities of the IU Scholars Book Fair. I joined the planning committee first, and then Beth was connected with me via the library director, Francis Yates. As Beth was promoted as a library faculty member, and she started to focus on access and the promotion of library resources, Francis thought we had similar interests and that we should connect and work together on the Scholars Book Fair project. Then the book fair was hosted in spring of 2020, and it was a blast. More details about this collaborative project will be shared in the next slide. Secondly, the Open Education Network offered a multi-campus workshop. They call it a Train the Trainer workshop on introducing OER and how to host a textbook review and open education textbook workshop. So Beth saw this opportunity first, and then she kindly invited me to attend. She is going to share more about this event shortly. Last but not least, we collaborated to deliver the OER webinar series in spring of 2021 on our campus. The Associate Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs, so he wanted to promote the awareness of OER on our campus. So Beth and I, we had been having Zoom meetings to design and develop the OER webinars. Beth is going to talk more about our collaboration experience and the end. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to talk about the first event, the Scholars Book Fair. The Scholars Book Fair is modeled after the Scholastic Book Fair that was a popular carnival-like event in many of our schools. Scholars Book Fairs and IU are very playful and exploratory looks at affordable content and how we can all help drive down the costs of education for our students. The Scholars Book Fair idea was first created by the IU Digital Education Program, which is part of the IU University Information Technology Services. We call it UITS, and it is located at IU Bloomington. So the library and each IU campus was invited to join this project to co-present the affordable content options that can make course materials more accessible and affordable to all students. In the fall semester of 2019, I was brought in as I am the US employee working for the Learning Technologies unit. And soon I got connected with Beth and invited her to work together on this project. Monthly Zoom meetings were scheduled to discuss the details, and the Scholars Book Fair was finally held on February 4th, 2020. It lasted for about 2 hours, and 12 faculty joined us that day. For a smaller campus like IU East, it was a huge success. That day, US employees, including me, and the library staff members, including Beth, presented at the tables, showing people the different affordable content options. Specifically, Beth presented at the OER table, and I presented how to use Canvas Commons to create a course content. And the follow-up consultations were also offered. You could check out more information about the Scholars Book Fair on this page. That's just, click on that and showing you the page, bookfair.iu.edu. So you can, Beth, you want to say something about the kit?
Oh, I was just pointing out, if you're ever interested in doing a similar event, they have a kit that they offer on their website right here to the right of the page. So it's anything you can grab, and they've got really neat stuff on various different technologies and different images and things like that that you can use. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Yeah, and if you're interested, you can just go through this page and take a look at the different types of content we present to our faculty. Okay, let's go back to the slide. And the last year, Beth and I and another faculty member from the library, Sue McFadden, we reflected on our experience, and then that led to us working together on the ACRL Cookbook chapter. So the Associate of College and Research Libraries, ACRL, they announced a request for proposal for their scholarly communications cookbook, and our proposal was accepted. After a few rounds of revisions earlier this month, we just got the news that the cookbook is going to be published this October. Very exciting. And now Beth is going to talk about the other two OER events.
Thanks, Sihong.
Sure.
So I'm going to backtrack a little bit and just go back to the IU OER Advisory Council a little bit. Again, I joined this group in 2019. This is when we first got started. And it's a group mostly of IU library members from the different campuses, but also a few faculty members. We are headed by Carolyn Gentle-Giannetti, who is the Assistant Vice President for the University Academic Policy and Director of the University Transfer Office. And one of our first priorities as this group was to get all the other IU campuses to join the Open Education Network. IUPUI had already received a grant to cover the initial cost of them joining, and with just smaller contributions from the rest of us, we could all kind of hop on their train to join as a consortium of sorts. So IU as a whole joined the Open Education Network at the beginning of 2020. Due to COVID, we didn't have our first workshop until last October. The only attendees from our campus was myself. Again, the other librarian, Sue McFadden, she worked with us a little bit on the Scholars Book Fair, as Zihong has mentioned. And myself, we were the three that attended. It only made sense I invited Z to join me since she is our instructional technology consultant. And she would obviously have an important part to play in something like this. But we had a few more openings for other people to attend, and I thought it would be great if some faculty could join us as well. So I did share the call out to our Associate Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs. He's the one that normally sends these types of announcements through our faculty listserv. So he did, but we didn't get any takers, unfortunately. So it's just the three of us. So if you're a part of OEN, you probably took this training yourself. And as Zihong mentioned, this is the train-the-trainer workshop, and it's basically preparing you to have a textbook review workshop on your campus, where faculty come to review and hopefully adopt textbook from the open textbook library. So this workshop focused a lot on how to talk to faculty about OER, answering common questions, dispelling myths about OER, and so on. One of my main takeaways I got from this workshop was their recommendation to start small, have an elevator pitch, send out an email, just any kind of like low stakes way to kind of introduce yourself and introduce OER to faculty. All the IU campuses are sort of at various levels of OER initiatives. IU Bloomington, IUPUI, they're much bigger. They're a little farther along in their plans. And hopefully our advisory council, as we get going, will have more kind of university-wide top-down initiatives that will be for all of us. But right now, the regionals, we're all kind of just starting from the very beginning. And I knew when taking this workshop that at IU East, I don't think we quite had the audience to make one of these workshops a success. So starting small was something I really latched onto. So after this meeting or this workshop, I reached out to Zihong and Sue and I said, let's meet and brainstorm and see if we can come up with a way to start small. And Zihong actually brought up the idea of having a webinar or a webinar series. Well, it was probably just a couple weeks after this, so maybe the end of October 2020, beginning November, I received an email from my boss, Director Gates, that came from our Associate Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs. And he had a question. A faculty member had asked him a question about OER, and he was asking us if we had a guide of sorts, which of course we do. We have a LibGuide with that advertises OER materials and outlets. But my boss grabbed this opportunity as a way to get him as an audience. And she said, hey, maybe we should have a meeting with the library, CFD, where Zihong is, the Center for Faculty Development, and with our Associate Vice Chancellor. And he said, sure. So we had another meeting all together just a couple weeks later to kind of discuss ways we can kind of introduce OER on our campus. So we mentioned, Zihong and I mentioned like, oh, we kind of discussed having this webinar series, and our Associate Vice Chancellor was like, that's a great idea. I like it, go for it. So even though we already had the support from our directors a little bit on this, it was nice to also have a little bit higher up support from someone in academic affairs. So we got to work. So this takes us now to our webinar series. So Zihong had brought me in on the Scholars Book Fair. I invited her in to take part in the OEN workshop, and now we were planning our first initiative together. We knew we wanted to make this a series from the start, so we planned 3 short 30-minute presentations. Because we knew at this time, COVID had been going on for a year. People were a little tired of, presentations and being on Zoom. So we knew we wanted to kind of make this short and simple as possible. I planned the content and created the presentation slides. I consulted with Zihong on some dates and times that would work, since she had more experience in conducting these types of webinars than I did, and she had some good suggestions. We wanted to space the presentations about a month apart, and we didn't want them to overlap with anything else happening. And we also wanted to get them on the schedule early enough so we can advertise them through CFDs, or the Center for Faculty Development's calendar of events. So we kind of had our initial planning in November and kind of finalized things a little bit more in that January of 2021. So, and we ended up having these presentations after lunch in the afternoon from 1 to 1:30. These were Zoom sessions. We recorded the webinars with Zoom. And during the live sessions, we had about 2 to 3 faculty attend at a time, plus a couple of library staff members. The first session was your general introduction to what are OERs. The second one was where to find them. And on this one, I really emphasized our LibGuide, and for faculty just connect with me with questions or ideas. The third one was a bit trickier. I actually tailored that one to answer some of the questions that came up from faculty who had attended the second session. And the third one was really just some ways to address their concerns, to take small action steps and to offer some low bar ways for faculty to take part in OER. Click on one so you can kind of see, yeah. So Zihong acted as my tech support. She recorded the presentations and she edited them, and they were uploaded here into Kaltura, and they were shared out with faculty once they were completed. Our Associate Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs has been a good supporter. He consistently shared the recordings through our faculty listserv as they came out, and he did one more at the end with all 3 of them once we had them all together. And yeah, I think we had at least probably somewhere between 10 to 20 views on each video. So even though we only had a couple faculty attend in person, it looks like we certainly had more, hopefully, that have viewed the videos since then. And I did have one faculty member who attended the second and third sessions in person. She watched their first recording, and she's now sort of been, I kind of identified her as an advocate of sorts. This past summer when I ran into her and she's introduced me to other faculty, she's like, oh, this is Beth. She works with OERs. And so I was really excited about that. And she had a lot of great questions, and she didn't adopt an OER full out, but she did include one as a supplement for her class this fall. So already this webinar was a success in my eyes. So touching on a few other things, I'm going to backtrack just a little bit back to last November or December. When I was first thinking about the content I was going to present for the webinar series, I thought it'd be kind of nice to have an idea on what faculty actually know about OER here, to have some evidence that could support or inform future OER initiatives. So during the time I was thinking of this, the Center for Faculty Development had sent out information about a few fellowships and awards they were giving out for the upcoming year, for the 2021 year. And CFD here really encourages newly tenured and those new to research to apply for these. And I thought, oh, well, why not me? I'm newly tenured. It's a fact that I usually sometimes forget because I've kind of been in this role longer than the past 2 years. I thought maybe I should submit a proposal for one of these fellowships to do an OER assessment. So I did, and I actually received an award. I won the Faculty Fellowship and the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning to conduct a survey of faculty awareness of OER at the IU East campus. So I could answer some of the questions I had, like, what do IU's faculty already know about OER? What kind of support do they need if they already use an OER? What extra training do I need to effectively provide some OER education programs? And another big one is, what is the best way to communicate OER initiatives to IU's faculty? I didn't work directly with Zihong on this survey proposal, but I did want to include this because it is supported by her department. I received the fellowship through her department. And the findings of this survey are certainly going to help guide me in planning for future workshops and webinars, most likely with Zihong as my partner. This survey was sent out in March through the faculty listserv by our champion, our Associate Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs. So between the reminders of the OER webinar series and this survey, our faculty were getting the acronym OER tossed at them on a regular basis this past spring. So I like to think that we were planting the seeds for future faculty interest. After the webinar series ended in April, we wanted to keep the momentum going. So the library and CFD, we collaborated again, mainly myself and Zihong, to plan a post-Senate workshop this October that is focused on helping faculty find OER and other textbook alternatives like e-texts and library license content that can also help students save some money. CFD typically has a workshop or a professional development presentation after faculty senate, and they are usually well attended. So we grabbed one of these spots, got lucky enough to get a placement, and we hope to engage even more faculty here in the near future. So depending on how that one goes, we may be ready for that OEN textbook review workshop in another semester. So now I'm going to pass things back to Z to wrap up.
Thank you, Beth. Reflecting on our collaboration, we have found the following 5 points to be very helpful. First one, taking advantage of resources and the services provided by each department. As Beth mentioned earlier, the library brings OER knowledge, such as locating OER, like where to find OER, helping evaluate the quality of OER, and like licensing and so on. And my center, the Center for Faculty Development, brings connection to faculty and training opportunities and technology support. So there have been contributions made from each department. And the next one is getting support from leadership. So we are very lucky that our Associate Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs, he is very supportive, and our directors, the Director of Library and the Director of Teaching Center, are very open-minded and willing for collaboration. And Beth and I, we are appointed as the point people for OER initiatives on our campus. Now, we have been trusted a lot to design and develop quality OER training to our faculty. And then keeping open communication between departments. So my center is located in the library, and the Beth's office is very close to mine. Before the pandemic, I often walked into her office and we would have a quick chat, and which helped build our relationship further. And we constantly share information, not only information related to OER, but other issues as well, such as professional development and the presentation opportunities like this. And next, being flexible in the relationship. We are very flexible in working together. This isn't just when we work on OER things together, but especially when other areas of our work overlap. So while we may have a tentative date or goal to do something, we are able to work around each other's schedule and to provide alternatives to each other's ideas when necessary, and able to adapt to changes and that come up. Last but not least, taking small steps. Our relationship evolved actually over several different events and a couple years. And the OER webinar series really was just two of us working together, putting together a couple of kind of fairly simple and short presentations. People say that Rome was not built in a day, so try to be patient with each other and go slow.
So thank you. We really flew by this presentation. It didn't take as long as we thought it would. So we are happy to take any and all questions that you have about anything.
All right, thank you guys. I don't see any questions quite yet, but if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself and ask them, we have plenty of time to discuss anything that you guys might have. Perfect. I'm not seeing any. All right. Well, I guess if there's no questions, then we can end a little early.
Sorry,
Yeah, there we
got
go.
a quick question here. Just a quick question. So what kind of incentives, were there any incentives offered to faculty to adopt OER textbooks?
That's a good question. And to that, no, we don't have any incentives yet. That's actually a future goal of mine. That's one of the things I've really been thinking about as my next step, because I do realize that's another reason why I haven't quite attempted the textbook review workshop with the Open Education Network, because at this time I really don't have any funding to offer any type of stipend or any other incentive. One of the things I'm hoping we might try that workshop as a post-faculty Senate workshop, like we're doing the one we're having in October. And that one is we have the incentive of there's free food being offered. That's one of the reasons why we like doing the post-Senate workshops. The Scholars Book Fair was actually another time that it was a post-Senate workshop. We planned it as like that event to take place after Faculty Senate, because this was right before COVID and shut everything down. So we still had our Faculty Senate on campus. And again, that's one of the reasons why these things are usually more well attended, because a lot of faculty are already here on campus. Because at the regionals, we do a lot of online classes already. We have a lot of faculty that live either in Indianapolis or Dayton. They all kind of live a little farther, but this is kind of the one day of the month that most of them are here and present. And it's a good way to get an audience. But yeah, thinking about incentives that's one of the challenges I'm currently facing, and one of the things I'm thinking about more. But for the webinar series, since they were virtual, we just kind of post them as professional development type of opportunities, and we just had them advertise them, like I said, through our listserv, through the newsletter, to try to get more people. So again, just kind of small baby steps in terms of just getting the term out there. But yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Did anybody else have any other questions? All right. Well, I don't see any other questions.
That's all right. Hopefully you all can see mine and Zihang's email address. So if anything comes up at another time, feel free to email us at any time. We're happy to answer questions.
Well, thank you, Beth. Thank you, Zihang. Did you have something to say, Zihang?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Yeah, please feel free to send us a message if you have any questions. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Yes, thank you. We will post their slides onto Sketch later today, so those will be available for you guys. Up next at 1:15, we do have our lunch and network. So please jump on, grab a lunch and join us at that time to kind of network with other attendees. So we will see you then. All right,
Thank you.
thank you all. Bye.